toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Amen. Let's travel all the way to Finland. Juso, Karim.
Kohti yhtä, rakkauden, harmonian ja kauneuden täydellisyyttä. Ainoa olevaa, yhdistyen kaikkien valaistuneiden sielujen kanssa, jotka muodostavat mestarin ruumiillista, hengen ohjelmaa.
Amen. Thank you. Well, why not go to neighbor Swedish? Dennis.
Mot den enda, fullkomligheten av kärlek, harmoni och skönhet, den alena varandet, förenat med alla de upplysta själar som förkroppsligar mästaren, den vägledande anden. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Let's stay in the same region. Let's go to Berlin. Listen in German.
Dem einen entgegen, der Vollkommenheit, der Liebe, der Harmonie und der Schönheit, dem einzig Seienden, vereint mit all den erleuchteten Seelen, die den Meister, den Geist der Führung verkörpern.
Dankeschön, Dankeschön. Let's go from the early evening to very early morning. Let's go to the Hawaiian Islands. Ke aloha, Lani.
Sorry,
There
good
we
morning. I ke akua, kamea pono loa, o ke aloha lokahi, a me kanani, o ke kanaka vale no, o ke kanaka vale no, hui pu me na uhane, o la a pau loa, ke ia ano i ka ho'olala o ka haku, ka uhane o ke alakai.
Mahalo, mahalo. Let's listen in Esperanto to Chela.
Alla unuezzo, la perfectezzo de amo, harmonio, kai bello, la unu sola estajo. Unui ginta cum ciui lumigitai animoi, kiwi formas la encorpigion de la maestro, la spirito de gvidado.
Ooh. Let's listen to Shamsian Halim in Welsh.
Tia Gatrin, befeithrydd cariad, cyd gwrdd a perfeddwch, unig fod, ar un a'r holl aneidiau goledig, sy'n ffurfio'n gyforiad ar maester, ysbryd a'r weniad.
Oh, thank you so much. Let's listen in Turkish. Talat.
Bir ey doğru aşkın uyumun ve güzelliğin mükemmeliği. Tek varlık, üstünün bedenini oluşturduğum ışıklı ruhlarla birleşmiş rehberlik ruhu.
Oh, and let's listen Espanol, our dear Alima.
Hacia el uno, la perfección del amor, la armonía y la belleza. El ser único, unido con todas las almas iluminadas que forman la encarnación del Maestro, el Espíritu de Guía. Amén.
Amén. Amén. Gracias. My dear friends, I was supposed to be at the Southwest Sufi Community summer retreat. By blessing, they had really ample or over ample monsoon rains, and the road in became muddy, really muddy, and there was a concern for people's safety, and the camp was canceled. So here I am. We've been at home, and I was supposed to, Abraham and Halima were supposed to host. When they heard we were back, they asked if we would still take care of it, since they have a lot on their plate. But they are here with us, and so we thought at least this little section here we do together. So clearly we haven't got the technology to play together yet, but we can go back and forth. So we'll sing a verse or two. You'll sing a verse or two. We'll figure something out. Muqtadir ya Qadir ya Mati, O Allah. 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 Allah, Allah, East Coast. Muqtadir ya Qadir ya Matin, O Allah. 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 Allah, Allah, Allahu Allah, 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 Allahu Allah, 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 Allahu Allah, 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 Allahu Allah,
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you. So, my dear friends, yesterday, August 19th, was Urs of our beloved teacher, friend, guide, uncle, Joe Miller. And I thought I'd just do a little short slideshow before I hand this off to our brother Martin. So give me a moment to set that up, and I'll try to.
Yeah, actually, brother Muiz rather than Martin.
Oh yeah, that's it, because we just sang Martin. Thank you for my confusion. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see. Here we go. And let's change this view to full screen. Okay, so here is that everyone looking into that? Does that look good? Rahima, good?
It looks great, thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. So this is, you can see, Joe Miller. Here he was.
Wow, I love that
so,
picture.
Just for those of you who don't know, Joe Miller and his wife Gwen were some of the closest friends Murshid Sam had. And from what we understand, as Murshid was passing, he made a strong request for Joe and Gwen to take care of us and watch over us. And they did that impeccably. They were the closest friends we had, the protectors, without ever claiming us as theirs, even though we were all theirs. We would go on a walk with them every week through Golden Gate Park for, so from 70 to 92, till the time he left. We would go on a walk with him pretty much every week, and Tamam and I were very close with him as well. Close with both of them. Okay, so here they are up against a redwood tree. Joe was married 4 times, Gwen 3 times, but when they got together in their 50s, they said this marriage is to help us both wake up together, and we're going to stick with it. Here they are at the Theosophical Lodge. The place where they lived. They were. The person donated a beautiful house right near downtown San Francisco. Joe would always be wearing some kind of something on, like a bolo. This is a gao, with Tibetan relics in it. Here they are again in their home. One of my favorite pictures of Joe, especially because it comes from this. So that's Joe and I on one of the walks, probably in the early 80s. Here he is on the walk. At that time, nobody had told us you weren't supposed to give bread to ducks, so he'd bring bread, and he'd buy us all ice cream at the end of the walk. This is at our home. Whenever we'd have Tibetan empowerments, they would come. They loved to meet all the great teachers who came through. So this was at an empowerment in our home. Here's in our backyard. The person on the right, on our right, is my music guru, Pandit Prannath, and Joe in the middle. He wanted to check out anybody we were involved with. He would come and check it out. Is this okay? But they became very close friends. And here they are in our kitchen. That's Terry Riley in the back. That jewelry that Joe's wearing, I received that after he passed as a way to connect with him. Here he is with a beautiful Murshid who came to spend time with us named Murshid Hassan. His Qadri Rifai, and those of you who do zikr with Iqbal, he learned his zikr form from Murshid Hassan. We were sheikhs under Murshid Hassan. And here is Joe and Gwen with Lama Chime, they used to be called the Sufi Lama. Lama Chime used to come to the retreats up at in Chamonix that Pir Vilayat put on. Here's Joe and Gwen with Tamam and my Tibetan guru, the 12th Taisitu Rinpoche. These are all pictures from the 80s. This was a very important moment in Joe's life. This was, Tamam and I had been organizers when His Holiness Dalai Lama had come to town, and so naturally we always invited Joe and Gwen. But this one time we weren't the organizers, and we went to the organizers and said, please give a proper seating to Joe and Gwen Miller. They're our resident saints of San Francisco. And it was in Grace Cathedral, and even if you've never been there, you know how in a cathedral there's a stage, and then the choir is way back behind the stage. What's called the choir is behind the stage, and so they were placed there with all the high lamas. And His Holiness gave a beautiful talk, and Joe and Gwen couldn't hear a word because they were behind the stage. But when the talk was over, His Holiness walked straight over to them, bumped foreheads with them, and said to Joe, "Thank you for the work you've been doing. It's been a great blessing for the world." And when we picked up Joe and Gwen to walk them home, and this is on that walk home, Joe was crying. He said it was a confirmation of the work he had done in his life. And here they are. I don't know what the occasion is. And then last picture. There they are. And when we sing, "May all beings be well," that is a prayer called the Four Immeasurables from Lord Buddha, but the melody was Joe and Gwen. This is the key to eternity. Yes, this is the key to eternity. The words and the music and the melody make our hearts one, so you can see that you immortal are, and you have but to be. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Gwen. All blessings on whatever work you're doing now, and we feel your guidance. So I'm very, very happy to introduce Sheikh Muiz, not Martin, Sheikh Muiz, who I've known I think over 40 years, and Muiz has been a very close disciple of Murshid Wali Ali. Worked very close with Murshid Moinuddin too, but with Murshid Wali Ali, and clearly Murshid Wali Ali has retired as our esoteric school secretary, and then most of you know that Wali Ali, what he was tasked with was to try to present the teachings of our lineage in a refreshed form, just like we inherited the Gathas and the Githas from Hazrat Inayat Khan. So then there were 2 or 3 iterations of that Wali had done, and the last one was called God is Breath, a beautiful program, and that had a special form because the prayer wheels were formed. And the prayer wheels, it was now that we could use virtual reality. And so prayer wheels were formed of people who didn't live in the same area but could meet virtually once a month with a facilitator and go through this beautiful series of classes that Wali Ali had arranged. And it was a 2-year program. And so now we've empowered, requested, asked Muiz to fulfill the kind of guide for the God is Breath form, but with the recognition and wish that it become God is Breath 2.0, or so it again we'll have a refresh button to look at what worked, to look at what could use some polishing or some different way to present. So that's coming soon. But so this today was kind of like an introduction to meet Muiz and also to hear some of his thoughts and feelings. So happy to pass this on to you, my dear brother.
Thank you, Shabda. It's very humbling to have been asked to step into this role. It's another way that the guidance came through years ago in 1975 through Shahabuddin. I was in Atlanta and realized through meeting him at a weekend workshop in Atlanta that Sufism was my path. And he came a second time to Atlanta 6 weeks later and was open to initiating people into the Sufi path. And I put my name on the list. And it came to my turn, sat in silence for a bit, and he said, I'm going to interfere in your life. I'm not your initiator. You need to go to San Francisco and see Wali Ali and Moinuddin. They have something to give you, and you have something to give them. And I felt very, very clearly and very, very deeply that my truth had just come out of his mouth. And I did. I went to San Francisco, and what is it, 45 years later, here I am with another opportunity to give something back to them as well as to the larger community. And I'm deeply humbled and with deep gratitude and a bit of a gulp for stepping into very large shoes. I don't feel in any way that I'm going to replace my dear guide, Wali Ali, but it feels I'm inheriting an aspect of the mantle that he carried for so many years. And God willing, with your support and with clear guidance, we'll take the God is Breath course forward again into another incarnation that I don't think is going to be very different from the previous ones, but certain aspects and certain deepening. I know going through it myself, it deepened my own practice. I thought that I knew how to watch my breath. I thought I knew how to do some of the other fundamental practices. And what I discovered in moving through the material with the group of people that I was going through it with, I discovered that there were deeper dimensions, and I don't think it invalidated at all the way I had been doing practices before. It just deepened it and broadened it. So the feeling and the inspiration is to have a taste of what the course offers. I think one of the primary things that Wali Ali put forward and continued to emphasize during the course was to remember to come back to basics, and also to dive more deeply into the practices, to make them our own, and to open up to the spirit of guidance, letting the spirit of guidance come through us in the practice, so that it became a dynamic and a living practice rather than a form that may have been and probably was very, very valuable as a form, but to work towards really embodying that teaching that at a certain point we have to surrender and let go enough to allow the practice to do us. And this is part of the evolution, the journey along the path of letting go and letting God, or in the words of Pure Murshid, figuring out, discovering experientially how we end up making God a reality. Inayat Khan says, make God a reality and God will make you the truth. And from the guy on, God is what is wanting or lacking to complete ourselves. And in this process, within the curriculum of the class itself and also in my own development, there are a couple of quotes that have really resonated and vibrated. One is the Hadith, I was a hidden treasure, yearning to be known. And from the actual Hadith, the following phrases, so I created a creation that I may be known. And in my own being, that morphed into, so I became the universe and I became human beings that I might be known. And another really potent one that plugs right into the teaching of the God ideal, which is at the center of the God is Breath curriculum, is I am as my lovers, my devotees, my servants, my believers. I am as they imagine me to be. And that's exactly the central teaching of the God ideal, that we imagine what God might be like. And as human beings, the only way we can approach things that we haven't experienced, that we don't know about, is to begin to make comparisons. Someone asks us to taste a food we haven't tasted before, and one of the first things we might say is, well, what does it taste like? Tell me something similar to it so that I can have an idea inside what it might be like. And the same with meeting a new person. What's that person like? And so we've got this guidance to make God a reality, but the challenge is, how do we do it? The teachings about this deep mystery that the word God points to, or Allah, or Goddess, or whatever name we want to point towards it, in Ayat Khan says, is the absolute unity of the only being. And how do we form a relationship with something as vast as that? And he says what we need to do is we need to begin to connect with what we know, and then begin to stretch it and expand it. So we take our guides and teachers, and we do the practice of tasawwuri murshid with them, walking in their footsteps, adopting their attitude. And in this process, we end up, because we can't find that quality, that perfection in ourselves, because it's hidden too deeply, we project it out of ourselves onto someone else. We see someone who has a more perfected version of that quality than we experience in ourselves, and we say, oh, that's what it's like. That's what I might become if I practice, if I remember that there's a possibility there. And in this evolution, we finally get to a point where, in the emulation of this quality, in this practice of tasawwuri, our physical guide, or tasawwuri, one of the illuminated souls, we're stretching ourselves. And as we're concentrating on this perfection as if it were outside of ourselves, it's also acting on us from the inside. It's stimulating that quality. It's calling up that quality from the depth of our own being. And at a certain point, we realize that we've fully activated that quality within us, and we realize it was there all along. It's part of me, it's who I am. And then we do the stretching process again, and we imagine, we visualize, we do the tasawwuri, which means to create a picture in our imagination, to imagine. We imagine a greater version of that, a more perfect version of that, or perhaps another quality. And we go through the process again. And so, over and over and over again, we use the ideal to draw us forward into greater horizons, greater depth, greater perfections, until we realize that they were there all along. And ultimately, we learn this process of building sympathetic, empathetic relationships with these ideals, until we can begin to approach this absolute formless unity of oneness, the only being, in a way that becomes real. And we begin to awaken this God reality inside of ourselves. So that's, in a few words, the arc of the whole program, the whole effort. And it's a continual process. It's not a single event. And one of the biggest parts of it is this examination of what beliefs, what concepts, what constructs we have already in our human personality, in our egos, in our past learnings about this great mystery, about this being. Because some of them might not be very productive. Here in the U.S. and in the Christian world, standard religions emphasize God as stern judge, stern father, punisher, much more often than the loving parent and the compassionate being. And as Hazrat Inayat Khan says in some place, we can surrender willingly to beauty, but we have to work at it to surrender to power. And so this process is a training in learning how to link our breath with our heart essence, with our form, the form that we created in our imagination, our tasawwuri, Murshid, in a loving way, so that we're able to begin to surrender, to release, to open those parts in ourselves that are still immersed, merged with, identified with the beliefs about being separated, about being disconnected, because that's what holds us back. As long as we're holding an experience of separation, we are separated. We're experiencing separation. And so our spiritual practices are antidotes and remedies to these beliefs and to the mountains of evidence that we've accumulated that are proving to these parts of ourselves that these beliefs, these experiences are true. And the deeper truth is that they're only a tiny part of this larger picture. Yes, we are separate and we are disconnected in some of our aspects, but the larger story is that we have this oneness inside of us, that the soul is a ray directly from the heart of the Creator into manifestation. And we are not different. We are not separate from that. We approach it mentally and as an imagination in the beginnings, diving more deeply into it, awakening more and more of that pure soul essence hidden in the depth of the heart. And we grow and we stretch and we go farther and farther along the path. One of the other primary teachings that we come back to again and again, Hazrat Inayat Khan puts forth in the Githas, he says, the breath is the current which is established between all planes of existence. So there's the motivating factor, and we've got it right in our own inhalations and exhalations. And we learn as we begin to turn loving attention towards the very basic experience of our breathing, our inhalations and our exhalations, that it is more than just physical air. It's the current, the magnetism, the prana, the life force itself. So let's do a practice that begins to set the stage and open us up to this deeper realization. And I'm sure that many of us in the Zoom today know these teachings already. And this is an opportunity to come at them with beginner's mind, perhaps, and to dive more deeply into them and open up the space to let some new experience come in. So in moving forward, let's, as a focusing device, let's take the first phrase of the invocation, towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty. And let's inhale that and exhale that, following with our breathing, breathing up from below us, up through the body, up the body and the crown, with the towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, reaching upwards and opening. And on the exhalation, bringing it all down as light, who form the embodiment the illuminated souls, the spirit of guidance, toward the one, the spirit, with the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance, for a few times. Sweep up and then bring that deeper realization down into the embodiment, into the place where we have a felt sense of the reality behind the words. And one more time. And then a short wazifa practice to awaken that level of loving attention, loving awareness that will help us watch the breath in a very refined, a very delicate way. The divine name is Ar-Raqib, R-A-Q-I-B, loving attention. And some of the images that come out of the root of this word are the way we might watch an infant sleeping, or the way we might watch the stars at night with awe. And it also comes from the same root that Muraqabah, the concentration practice, comes from. So diving into the heart, Ya Raqib, 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 Ya Raqib. And taking this very refined, very gentle, loving attention, following the movement of the breath, noticing our inhalations and our exhalations. And feeling, opening to the rhythm that's in this cycle of inhaling and exhaling. Gently also beginning to pay attention to the two small pauses in the cycle of breathing. The pause at the top of the inhale before it turns into exhale. And the pause at the bottom of the exhalation before it turns over into inhalation. Feeling the movement and then feeling that little pause of stillness. And just noticing. Now, as the rhythm of our breathing has become a little slower, as we've held the entire cycle with the movement and the still points in our loving awareness, let's begin to open to the life force, the prana, that naturally comes in on the inhalations. It flows out of that vast container, the all-pervading life in space. And just begin to consciously draw in, very gently draw in more prana, more life force on the inhalations. Pausing a little bit. And returning to that container, that all-pervading life in space on the exhalations. Gently drawing in more of that vitality, that life force, that prana on our inhalations. Opening up to feeling the connection with that larger sphere, the all-pervading life in space of the exhalations. Both sides of the circuit, the charging and releasing. And continuing in this process and at the same time centering the awareness in the heart, in the middle of the chest. Drawing that prana, that life force, that vitality into the heart. Radiating it outwards on the exhalations. Feeling the entire physical body, the emotions, the mind, the heart, permeated and flooded with this life force, this radiance. And on the exhalations, radiate it outward, send it, fill in the room, beyond the room. And now let's link the deeper aspect of our heart essence, our love, with this radiance, with this life force, with our breath. Inhaling love along with the light and the life force, the life essence. Exhaling love in all directions, flooding our own being, flooding the atmosphere around us. Each cycle of inhale and exhale takes us deeper into this love that's at our center, opening up our longing to be united with the beloved. And if our attention begins to wander, coming back to just gently watching the inhales and the exhales. And within this field of love that we've opened to and connected to and generated, let's focus on one particular being. Maybe it's our own guide. Maybe it's one of the illuminated souls. Perhaps Murshid Sam, perhaps Pir Murshid Inayat Khan, Kuan Yin, whoever it may be. Tune into whoever that being may be for you in this moment. And continue the process of inhaling and exhaling, drawing closer. Seeing a form of them within the eye of the heart. considering what it might be like to see with their eyes, hear with their ears, walk with their feet, act with their arms, their intentionality, their atmosphere. And gently bringing our expanded awareness back into an awareness of our own embodiment, our own physical bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, without losing this larger connection to the larger sphere, to the greater aspect of what we're connected to and who we are in our deepest essence. Let's take this awareness and do the purification breaths. If you feel like standing, Pure Murshid Inayat Khan recommends doing them standing, but it's certainly not a requirement, whatever works best for you. Breathing in and out through the nose, repeating, Ya Shafi, Ya Shafi, Ya Shafi, Ya Shafi. Oh, healer, on the inhalation. Ya Kafi, Ya Kafi, Ya Kafi, Ya Kafi on the exhalations. You who are sufficient to every need, in and out through the nose. And moving on to the second breathing pattern, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Keeping the breath very refined, continually drawing this prana, this life force, with the focus of These two names of healing, Shafi and Kafi, flooding the body with the Shafiya and the Kafiya, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And moving on to the third breathing pattern, in through the mouth and out through the nose. Again, very, very refined. Circulating the prana through the body in this fashion, ala shafi, ala kafi. And the fourth breathing pattern in and out through the mouth. Ala shafi, ala kafi, O healer, O sufficient to every need. And then completing these purification breaths with the prayer Nayaz. And prayer Nayaz mentions three powers: the rays of the sun, the waves of the air, and the all-pervading life in space. And following a suggestion that Murshid Sam wrote in his commentaries on the Gathas on breath that I came across many years ago. I've been stopping, pausing after each mention of those powers and breathing the power in of the rays of the sun, the waves of the air, and the all-pervading life in space. So I'd like to suggest that we do that when we get to those three phrases. Beloved Lord, Almighty God, through the rays of the sun, inhale the power of the rays of the sun and then exhale that power again. Through the waves of the air, through the all-pervading life in space, purify and revivify us. And we pray, heal our bodies, hearts, and souls. Amen. I'd like to read that segment of what Murshid wrote about this. Hazrat Inayat Khan says, the breath purifies the body by taking in new and fresh life and giving out all gases that should be put out. It nourishes the body by absorbing from the space the spirit and substance that are necessary and more than necessary than all we eat and drink. And Murshid Sam's commentary is this. This simple lesson is most important. Disciples are given the purification breaths and nayas, and they do not realize at first how important they are. Every breath brings the power of the space, heart as pure power, and also as healing power, by which one can benefit oneself and others. The prayer nayas is generally given to disciples after initiation, but it is also a published prayer, which can be recited by anybody. And here's the segment that really resonated within me. It generally takes a long time to realize that every inhalation may draw in the beneficence of the rays of the sun, the waves of the air, and the all-pervading power or life in space. Actually, when one can avail oneself of this, it follows, as the Saint Mullah Baksh said, that there is no gain in life excepting the remembrance of Allah. With each inhalation, and no loss save the forgetfulness of God. When we keep the remembrance, we have the keys to the realm of heaven, so to speak. And when we actualize, we have more than the keys. We may have the mastery. So it must be repeated that every inhalation is an opportunity to draw in the divine effulgence, and every exhalation an opportunity to be raised over the denseness of the earth. So taking a few moments and just feeling, turning the attention again to the body, to the heart center, to the energy field, and just being aware of what it feels like. Having done the practices that we've done up to this point. Amen. And one other practice that is one way of actualizing the teaching that Pure Mershid and Ayat Khan had here about the breath being able to draw in what we need and being able to let go of what we no longer need. It's a concentration on a pair of the divine names that are not exactly opposites, but they complement each other in their activity. The first is Al-Quddus, Quddus, and the other is Al-Jami', Jami, apostrophe, that Arabic consonant that we don't have in English. And just quote a bit from Physicians of the Heart. Al-Quddus is the ever purifying one. It requires us to take leave of what we cling to in order to experience intimate union. Al-Quddus allows the spiritual traveler to transcend the lower self and keep going toward the one. Al-Quddus is a force that constantly cleanses us from the conceptual mind and its differentiations. It is continually purifying our experience of the world through inward intimacy and union with the Absolute. The variation of the root of this name means to return home to one's village. Al-Quddus then is always purifying and always distancing in the sense of leaving behind the ephemeral to go fully into the eternal. And Al-Jami' is the gathering. It means to come back together, to bring all the parts into a whole. Al-Jami' is to return home, to return to the real self, a constant process of becoming reconnected with wholeness, sometimes called the grand synthesis, the joining of all joinings. These two pathways of realization complement each other. Al-Quddus offers purification of the nafs, while Al-Jami' offers integration of the various aspects of the nafs. So let's vocalize them for 11 times as a pair, and then take it into fikr, into the swing of the breath, exhaling Quddus, and just releasing what is ever ready, what's ready to be released, what we're ready to let go of, releasing into that larger container of that stillness, that silence, and that oneness, the container that holds us. And then on Jamia, we'll inhale, drawing out of that what we need in this moment, the perfected qualities we need for who we are right in this moment. And at the pause at the top, we'll hang out in that place a little bit. And then the exhalation comes again, and we're in the releasing mode and letting go even of the qualities we just breathed in, letting go of who we are in this moment to make room for who we will become in the following moment. So, Ya Quddus, Ya Jami', 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 Ya Quddus, Ya Jami'. And one more time. Ya Quddus, Ya Jami'. Taking these two qualities and these two vibrational patterns into the swing of the breath. Exhaling, Ya Quddus, releasing whatever is ready to be released into that larger container of absolute perfection and purity, offloading everything that is temporary, transitory, inessential to our essential being, and spending a few moments in that space, and then inhaling, drawing out of that space the perfected qualities we need, reconfiguring ourself in this moment as a more perfect version of who we are, and spending a little time in that pause at the top of the inhalation to feel the ecstasy of this reconfigured self, and then releasing in the exhalation again, Ya Quddus, and repeating the pattern with each inhalation and exhalation. And one more exhalation and inhalation. And then sitting with a few gentle breaths and just noticing what the space feels like, what the body and the heart feel like. And for 2 or 3 more breaths, look directly into the camera. Share your heart, your breath, your darshan with everyone who's in the Zoom and beyond. Just let it radiate outwards, drawing from the all-pervading space, the all-pervading life in space on the inhalation, radiating on the exhalation. Amen. So just a taste of some of the practices, some of the possibilities that the God is Breath caravan offers us. Thank you.
Thank you, Muiz. Beautiful, beautiful. I want to make a few words of sort of blessing and encouragement to you going forward. I have some visual cues to assist what I want to say. The magic of transmission in our lineage is such a powerful teaching. We come from pods, and we are seeds that come from those pods, and the seeds have an intimate relationship with the pod. And in this, I make a prayer that you keep your infinite relationship with Murshid Wali Ali and all the tremendous guidance and teachings that have poured through him into you. And at the same time that you keep your connection to the seeds, the unique potential of how the spirit of guidance lives in you, and how you are in your own unique way a transmitter of the very teachings that have poured into you from the pod you come from. And we've asked you to teach in the River of Guidance program in September, and we're grateful that you're going to be giving this teaching, God is Breath, an introduction. And we've also asked you to take a post of helping the God is Breath program go forward. and may all blessings and guidance be with you in this post.
Alhamdulillah, and thank you very much, Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Time to dedicate. Oh wait, let's now I see us on speaker view. Let's go to gallery view. Come on. Take a moment. Thank you, Muiz. Thank you, Abraham and Halima.
Unmute.
I am unmuted.
No, for them.
Oh, not yet. No, and when we get to the peace, I'll pause, and then you can all unmute. Here we go. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Okay, don't sing yet, just unmute. Give everybody a chance to unmute. Not yet, not yet. Let's wait. Be patient. Here we go. God bless you all.